Hope at Crafty Hope, and welcome. I am going to work in this little junk journal that I made a couple weeks ago for one of my Crafty Hope prompts. I am using it because my friend Nina, when she saw me make this in that video, suggested that I save it for her year-long challenge, which is a clean slate journal. She made, well, a bunch of, what does she call them? They are paper bag journals. She made a bunch of them. I think she still has them for sale, and she is using one of the ones she made for this challenge. And she said, why don't I use my junk journal that I made for her challenge too? So I was like, you know what? I will. So I've been waiting to use this junk journal, and here we go. This challenge, there's not much to it except to get in your junk journal and play. Nina doesn't have any like prompts or anything like that. The idea is to just come play with her and, just get in that junk journal. So I will link over to Nina and her video if you would like to watch that. But here am I in my junk journal. Now, I did not like this first page in my junk journal. I am very much about working front to back, especially in a junk journal. I know it's horrible. It's got all these yummy pages. Sometimes I'll jump around, but because they are so different every time, it's something new and different. And that's what I like about junk journals. But, if I just move to the next page, it's different than the one before every time. So, yeah. So I've got that ledger, but I didn't like the paint colors that were on it. I didn't want that for my first page, so I grabbed a couple of collage materials, including that. I think there's a couple pieces of rust dyed paper and something from a shorthand book, and then there's a piece of a scrapbook page. Okay, so I glued that all down, leaving some of the ledger showing. And on my desk, I had just finished another project with some watered down black acrylic paint, and since that was still sitting in my little palette and I didn't want it to go to waste, I'm going to go ahead and use it here. So I'm picking up a little bit of it and just doing some mark making with a brush, just making these lines on here. And that's one of the things I like about collage and collaging with different papers is I can already see how each of those different papers is reacting differently to that watered down acrylic paint. And it's super cool. I love that. So once I got that down and dried, we're going to go through a couple different sets of things where I'm going to dry it. So this is just some Liquitex Basics gesso and a palette knife that I'm just kind of scraping around on the page. I wanted to give some different textures on here. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to go in next with, but this gesso helps, I don't know, make these different pieces of paper, a little more cohesive on here. So once again, I'm going to dry this. I thought about it for a second, but yeah, I'm going to dry it. And then since I have all of that gesso on there and it and the paper and all of those different things are going to react differently, I grabbed a watercolor palette and I'm getting this, it's like an olive green color on there. There was a little bit of that on that scrapbook paper I used. So I'm totally going to roll with the greens and rust colors for this page. I don't know. That's not a palette I would normally use, but I love a good olive green, y'all. So I put that color down just randomly on the page, and then as you could see, splattered it a little. Why not? And once again, I will dry this. After this, I'm not going to do a whole lot of breaking up the drying. So since I had those rust papers down, I said, well, why not? We'll use some Rusty Hinge Distress Oxide and one of my hand carved stamps. I was feeling doing something kind of botanically, so I found this one that has kind of a viney ish botanical leafy thing going on, and I'm just going to put that in several spots on my page. And as I like to do, especially with the Distress Oxides and Distress Inks and my hand carved stamps, I'm going to grab a paintbrush that is wet and basically activate that a little bit, wet it in a couple spots just so it will kind of blur and bleed and just do some neat things. And I'm doing it, you can see I've got a pretty tiny brush there, and I'm trying not to get it too wet. I keep dipping it in my water and getting it too wet because I don't want it to like drip down the page. I just want to blur the edges a tiny, tiny bit. And y'all, this is such a tiny detail that at this point it's probably for me more about the action of doing it than the results that I get from it. So, and then I went and found a focal and some other elements to add to it, and I looked for a page that had kind of a sepia tone to it that would kind of go with the rusty color that's on there on that page already. So I grabbed this picture, and I just wanted there was also an older man and a little kid off on the side of that, and I tore them off. I'll use them another time. But I just wanted this main man and woman on there. So I tore them down from the photo, and I've got this piece of, it's probably duck cloth, y'all, just like a super cheap fabric. And I'm tearing it down as best I can just to kind of back this a little bit because I want to add some embroidery. Now, I've not been big on adding a lot of chunk to a lot of my things lately. Well, I did in my uh, my Crafty Hopes prompt card yesterday. I think it was yesterday, whatever day I put it up. I put buttons on something, but this junk journal I designed so that I can add some chunk to it. It's got plenty of room to fill out. So I want to make sure I get something, some stuff. I keep saying chunk, but some heftier pieces in here. So I was like, embroidery will add a little bit of something. So you can see I've got that embroidery floss to the side, but I've stuck part of my photo down on that piece of fabric, and while it was sticking to it, I put my embroidery length of that olive green embroidery floss onto a needle, and you see I'm putting it into my fabric there that my photo is stuck to, and I am making French knots. So this is a matter of pulling my thread through, wrapping my thread around my needle a couple of times, and then pushing my needle back through the thread in a slightly different spot so that it makes these fun little knots. Now, they always remind me of little roses for some reason, so I think of them like little rosettes. And these can be as big or as small as you want depending on the thickness of your thread, how many times you wrap your thread around your needle. Because I'm using all 6 strands of embroidery floss, I am only wrapping my thread around my needle twice, and it's giving me the exact size of French knot I want. I had a little bit of trouble with this one. I went a little too far off from my entrance hole, so it's a little wonky, but it's okay. It's fine. This is supposed to feel a little rustic and old, and that's, an error is okay. What do they say that that's just an opportunity to make something different. If you make a mistake, it's just an opportunity to do something else. So I'm leaving that as an opportunity to make it look like it's old, I guess, and worn. So I've got, I think, 5, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knots in that upper right corner, and I decided to do another 3 kind of down in the lower left. Did I already prick my finger? Because somewhere in here I pricked my finger. I had to stop and make sure I wasn't bleeding. So yeah, this is just about done. I'm loving that. I really especially liked putting that French knot next to that lady's head. It kind of makes me want to take another vintage photo and do French knots all around somebody's head and look like they've got flowers in their hair. So that may be something I come up with later. So I've got that all done. I'm going to tie this off super quick, and then I think I'm going to go straight in and glue it down because I cut my knot a little too close. So I'm going to add I'm using matte gel for all of this to make sure everything adheres really well, and I'm kind of picking out a spot. Not that it matters, because once I flip it over, it's not going to matter. So I'm starting by making sure I put some of my matte gel right on top of my knots. And I start to try to use my finger to spread it, but that wasn't going to work. So I grabbed a paintbrush, and I'll do it that way. And I will go ahead, and once I flip it over, I'll weigh it down for just a second so that it gets secure in its spot. And while it is getting secure, I go and I pull out my Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers and I find the sentiment "Be You Bravely," which I thought was perfect because for Wanderlust this year, we were asked to pick a word of the year, and I hadn't chosen a word this year. Wasn't planning on choosing a word this year, but since I am signed up for Wanderlust, I want to play along, and I chose the word brave because I want to kind of, in some cases, get out of my shell a little bit more. It may seem odd that I do these videos for y'all, but I'm such a homebody and I don't go out of my comfort zone, and I'm pretty much an introvert. I love doing these videos, but y'all don't get to see me much because I hide. So I want to be a little more brave. We'll see. We'll see. Thought I needed a little more dark on there, so I will splatter some more of that watered down black acrylic paint on there using a fan brush. And you can see I covered up my focal so that I didn't get any of the splatters on there, but somehow I did. So I'm just going to use my finger real quick and blot those off and dry that real quick. And in drying it, I decided I needed some brown on here to kind of go with that picture a little bit more. So I'll use my instant coffee, which I will water down. I needed some more in my little cup, so I've added some, and I'm just using my distress sprayer to add the water to it. And I'm going to paint a couple spots just to get some of the brown. I don't want to cover up all of the green and I want to leave some of the white, and I don't want to blur too many of my stamps and things like that. So I'm trying to be conscious of what I am doing. I did get some onto my fabric on the corner, and it's going to soak in, and that's kind of okay. It makes me kind of wish I had dyed the fabric in the first place. But, I'll try that another time. Well, I will dry this, y'all, and that will be the end of this. It was a super fast page for me. I'm going to thank Nina for encouraging me to jump into this journal and play with her. I'm going to give you a couple shots of this. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and ask away in the comments section if you have any questions. I appreciate you taking your time to spend it with me. I will see y'all later. Bye.